Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Test Automation Mantras. In today's video, I'm going to cover one more automation framework using Playwright. Playwright library can be used to write end-to-end automation tests for the modern web applications. You can run your test on different OS, as well as you can run your test on native mobile applications using emulators like Android, or if you want to run your test on Safari, so it does support that as well. Playwright does support multiple languages. You can write your test in JavaScript, TypeScript, .NET, or Java. For today's session, I'm going to use TypeScript. So the setup which I'm going to use ID is Visual Studio Code. And before actually I can write a code, I have set up Node.js as well into my system. So that is pretty much a prerequisite you need to do. To start with, I have just created a folder as Playwright into one of the location, and I open that folder into Visual Studio Code. To start with Playwright, you need all the libraries to be installed. So first of all, for any Node.js project, you see here all the libraries and dependencies are stored in package.json file. How do we initiate that project? So I'm going to use npm in today's session, which is a node package manager to create and support all different Node.js commands. So I can initialize my project using npm init. Also, I need a Playwright library, so I'm going to do into one step. I can do in two different steps, like initialize a project using npm init, or I can then go and install the libraries for the Playwright. But what I will do is I will do all in one go. So now project initialization is done using npm init. Specify the Playwright, which version you want to install. I'm going to use @latest, which pulls the latest version. If you want a specific version, you can specify the specific version here as well. Press enter and let's wait for a few seconds. There you go. So we have a project initialization is started, and it's asking, do you want to use TypeScript or JavaScript? As I mentioned, I'll be using TypeScript. So select that and enter. Now you need to specify a folder location where you want to set and put your all the test. I'm going to select the default folder as test. Add a GitHub action. As of now, I don't want to add GitHub actions workflow. We can do that later, but I'll skip that step for now. And now it's initializing the npm project. You can see the project is created, and all the metadata information about the project is being written into the package.json file. After that, it's installing Playwright libraries or dependencies, and it does tell which all commands it is running. After the installation is finished, you can see it gives a default commands to build understanding. So the first command is to run the test. If you would like to run the test in Playwright, you can simply type a command as npx playwright test. If you would like to run your test into the Chromium, then you specify this parameter here. You can also run a test from a specific file or a specific file itself. You can specify that location here in the command line parameter. If you would like to see or debug more information about the command which you're running and what happens inside, you can add ---- debug to the command line parameter. npx playwright codegen. This command is very interesting. So codegen helps you to auto-generate the code without any manual efforts from your web applications. And it is helpful in some cases. You don't need to find any locators manually. It is going to put all the steps together. All your actions are captured as auto-generated code. So this is going to be very helpful. We are going to cover that later in the session. To start with, just to go back to after the initialization or installation of libraries are finished, as you can see, there are some folders created on the left-hand side. We'll go through these folders in a short while, what all these does. But just to start with, let's try to run our test using command npx playwright test and see what it does. So while running the test, it should take a few seconds. Now it's saying it's running 3 tests using 2 workers. Ideally, if you look in the left-hand side, since we specified folder as a test when we were going through the configuration, it is running like there are 2 tests written here. So ideally, 2 tests are fine, but it is saying running 3 tests using 2 workers. That means there are 2 tests running and 3 basically workers. And what are these? We'll go through the configuration just to understand it better. As you see in the details, it is trying to run your test into different browsers. And from where those browsers are coming, if you go to playwright config.ts file, you will see the projects. As we discussed, if you want to run a specific test in a specific browser, you can specify hyphen project equal to whatever the name of that browser is. In this case, we have enabled 3 different devices here, like desktop, Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. So your test is running actually into 3 different browsers. And that is why you see it's running 3 tests using 2 workers. After this configuration, if you do not want to run on Firefox and WebKit, you can comment these configurations. Say, for example, I comment it and I go and run the test again. You will see there is only one, in this case, there is only one test running in using one worker. So you can also go and open the report. The report gets created. This is a default report. If you would like to show, you can run this command, show the report, or you can go to Playwright reports and open that report into choice of your browser. So say, for example, in this case, I can open that file into Chrome browser, and I will try to display what it actually displays. So what it is running, it's running the test in the Chromium, and it's running the first test, which is this test folder, this example.ts. So what this test does is it's opening a Playwright website. As you see, it goes to playwright.dev, and then it's expecting a title. And then after that, it's just creating a locator. There's some text written as get started. You go and check some attributes. You click on that get started, and then it's again checking the URL. So that's a very simple test written with the default configuration being done. That is pretty much about the Playwright setup. Going back to configurations, there are many other options. As we mentioned, the test which is being picked up is picked up from the test directory as /test. So this is the test which is getting picked up when we are running the command. There's a default timeout, which is like a global timeout being set up here. So in this case, you can increase the time if your tests are going to take more time. Also, we have another timeout specified for the expect conditions, like where you are doing assertions. The current timeout is 5,000 seconds. You can increase or decrease that timeout on the basis of your application configurations. Apart from that, there are many others, like do you want to run the test fully in parallel? So multi-threaded or multiple workers you can specify as well. So we'll go through this in details later. As of now, let's go back to simple tests and see how do we modify and what exactly we want to do with that. So instead of Playwright, say, for example, you specify something else in here, which is like page title. In this case, the test should fail because it will not find a title as Playwright 2, ideally. So let's run and see what it does here. It's still running. The test will fail, and as you see, it is highlighting on which line the test is failing, as well as it is like specifying the different call logs as well. So it's waiting for something to get resolved, and title with timeout 5,000 milliseconds. And that configuration is coming from the configuration file as we discussed. So expect timeout is 5 seconds, which is not meeting the expectations. So in this case, it's good to have a less timeout, because just think about if your element is never visible, your test is going to wait for that maximum timeout.